Adam Crabb sat in front of a camera at 51 years old and pressed record, not to deliver a polished testimony or a rehearsed praise report, but to finally say something real. What followed wasn't dramatic in the way scandals usually are, it was quieter, more reflective, and ultimately more revealing. He spoke about why he walked away from the Gaither Vocal Band at a time when most artists would have held on tightly. For years, the outside narrative had been simple: he had made it. He was touring packed arenas, recording successful projects, and standing alongside Bill Gaither, one of the most influential figures in Southern gospel history. From the outside, it looked like the pinnacle of a career. But what Adam revealed was that success inside that system comes with trade-offs that aren't immediately visible, and for him, those trade-offs eventually became too significant to ignore. To understand his decision, you have to understand what the Gaither Vocal Band represents. It's not just a group, it's an institution that has defined Southern gospel music for decades. Since its founding in 1981, it has featured some of the genre's most celebrated voices, including Michael English, Mark Lowry, David Phelps, and Guy Penrod. The group has sold millions of records, won prestigious awards, and built a loyal audience that spans generations. When Adam joined in 2009, he was already an established artist, having risen to prominence with the Crabb family alongside his siblings. That group had been a dominant force in gospel music, known for its powerful vocals and emotional performances. But like many family acts, it eventually faced internal pressures and creative differences that led to its decline. So when Bill Gaither offered Adam a place in his group, it felt like a natural next step, a chance to step onto an even bigger stage. And for a while, everything worked exactly as expected. Adam's voice blended effortlessly into the group's harmonies, and his presence energized the performances. He became a familiar face in the Gaither Homecoming series, appearing in concerts and recordings that reached audiences across the country. But behind the scenes, the structure of the organization was very different from what many fans imagined. The Gaither Vocal Band operates less like a traditional band and more like a carefully managed enterprise. Artists are brought in as part of a larger system controlled by Gaither himself, a system that includes recording, touring, television production, and distribution. It's a vertically integrated model where the brand remains at the center, and the artists contribute to its ongoing success. For some performers, this structure is ideal. It offers stability, consistent income, and access to a massive audience. But for others, especially those who have experienced creative independence, it can feel limiting. Adam came from a background where he had a significant degree of control over his work. With the Crabb family, decisions about music, touring, and business were made within the group. That autonomy came with uncertainty, but it also meant ownership. In contrast, being part of the Gaither system meant trading that ownership for security. He was no longer building something that belonged to him. He was contributing to something much larger that he didn't control. By around 2014, that tension had started to grow. It wasn't something that played out publicly, but internally, Adam began questioning whether he was still fulfilling his calling or simply doing a job. The distinction might seem subtle, but for an artist, it's everything. The more he reflected on it, the more he realized that he missed the sense of building something personal, something that carried his own vision and direction. So he made a decision that surprised many. He left the Gaither Vocal Band. At the time, the departure was framed in professional terms, with both sides expressing mutual respect. But the deeper reason was that Adam needed to reclaim a sense of ownership over his career. In the years that followed, he returned to independent work, touring and recording on his own terms. That period allowed him to reconnect with the creative freedom he had been missing. Yet in 2017 he made another unexpected move. He rejoined the Gaither Vocal Band. On the surface, it seemed contradictory. Why return to the very structure he had left? But the answer lay in how he had changed during his time away. He came back with a clearer understanding of who he was and what he needed. This time, he approached the role differently, maintaining a stronger sense of identity while still participating in the group. For a while, that balance worked. He delivered standout performances and appeared to have found a way to exist within the system without losing himself. However, the broader landscape of the music industry was shifting. By 2020, the pandemic disrupted touring, which had long been the financial backbone of gospel music. The traditional model, built on concerts, merchandise, and physical media, suddenly looked fragile. Artists across genres were forced to reconsider how they sustained their careers, and Adam was no exception. He began asking deeper questions about the structure of the industry itself. Why were artists still operating under systems that gave them limited ownership? Why were they relying on models that had been designed decades earlier, despite the rise of digital platforms that allowed for direct connection with audiences? These questions led him to a conclusion that ultimately shaped his future. Staying within the Gaither system meant accepting a framework that no longer aligned with his beliefs about creativity, ownership, and sustainability. So in 2023, he made the decision to leave again, this time permanently. When he finally spoke openly about it, his tone was not bitter or accusatory. He acknowledged the opportunities he had been given and the respect he had for Bill Gaither. But he also made it clear that the model wasn't right for everyone. For artists who want to build something of their own, he said, it can be limiting, not just financially, but creatively and even spiritually. His comments touched on a broader issue within gospel music. The industry often emphasizes ministry and sacrifice, encouraging artists to prioritize the message over material gain. While that perspective has value, Adam pointed out that it can also create an imbalance where those who create the art do not share equally in its financial rewards. Meanwhile, the infrastructure that supports the industry continues to generate revenue long after the artists have moved on. It's not a story of exploitation in the traditional sense, but it is a system that raises questions about fairness and sustainability. What makes Adam's perspective significant is that it reflects a larger shift happening across the music world. Artists today have more tools than ever to operate independently, from streaming platforms to social media. The gatekeepers that once controlled access to audiences no longer hold the same power. As a result, more performers are choosing to step outside traditional systems and build careers on their own terms. Adam's journey is part of that movement, a decision to prioritize ownership and long-term value over immediate security. The Gaither Vocal Band will continue to thrive, just as it always has. Its legacy is built on a structure that has proven remarkably resilient. But the artists who leave it are sending a message that resonates beyond gospel music. They are challenging the idea that exposure and stability are enough, arguing instead for a model where creators have a stake in what they produce. Adam Crabb's story isn't about conflict. It's about evolution. It's about an artist reaching a point in his life where he chooses to take control of his path, even if it means stepping away from something iconic. In the end, his decision represents more than a personal career move. It's part of an ongoing conversation about how art is valued and who benefits from it. And once that conversation begins, it has a way of spreading, forcing industries, audiences, and artists alike to reconsider what success really means.